Hello, everyone. It is just your girl today. It's just me, Katey. Abigail is on a work trip. She travels every month for her job, and normally we are able to align our schedules and make something happen. But for this week's episode, we unfortunately were not able to. So you've just got me yapping about the books I have enjoyed so far in 2025. According to my Goodreads, Storygraph, etc., I have read 67 books this year, which is actually, I know it sounds kind of crazy, but it's actually kind of low for me at this point in the year. Normally, I am up to about 75 or so by now, but I went through a major reading slump earlier this year. And I'm back at it. I'm back in the swing of things. So obviously I'm mostly going to be talking about my favorite romance novels of the year. Many of those I've already talked about, at least to some degree, on this podcast, but I also have a handful of honorable mentions, non-romance novels. So I'm going to go through the romance ones in chronological order, in the order that I read them in. And like I said, some of them you've heard about before, so I'm going to probably skim through a couple of these. The first one I have on my list that I gave 4 stars on Storygraph. If you are looking for me on Storygraph, what is my username? Hang on, let me tell you. I will tell you. It's at KL Pinchik, so KLPSENCIK, the same as my Instagram username, which is linked in our Instagram bio. Anyway, so my first one is Not Here to Make Friends by Jodi McAllister, which we read in January for the podcast. Now, this was a new to us author. I don't remember now how we came across this, but this book is actually the third in the Marry Me Juliet series, which is about reality TV and a show that's similar to like Bachelor, Bachelorette. I liked this book so much that I immediately went online and ordered the others in the series, which were actually kind of hard to find, believe it or not, because Jodi McAllister, I think, is an Australian author. Anyway, so I bought those other 2 books. Have I read them yet? No. But by this point, if y'all are listening to this, y'all know who I am and what I'm about. So yeah. So this was about 2 people working on a reality TV show who fall in love. You should go back and listen to our episode about it from January if you are interested in hearing more, but I won't spend too much time on it since many of you have already heard me yap about it. Another one I would like to mention that I gave 4.25 stars on Storygraph. If y'all aren't on Storygraph, you really need to get on it, because the fact that you can give like half and quarter stars honestly is like 99% of what makes it better than Goodreads for me. I mean, I like it for a variety of reasons. Anyway, so I gave this 4.25 stars. It came out this year. It's Wild and Wrangled. It's the 4th book in the Rebel Blue Ranch series. What I will say, by Lila Sage, what I will say about this series is that I do feel like this is one that is better if you have read all of the books in the series first, just because there are so many characters. Again, this is the 4th book. It's about Dusty and Cam, who have been 2 of my favorite characters in this series. But all of the side characters generally are people who have had their love stories told in these books already. So it's not going to be hard to follow if you haven't read the other books, but it might be a little overwhelming, maybe is the word we're looking for here. Anyway, so Cam and Dusty, it's sort of a second chance, sort of a friends to lovers. This was one of my favorite books in this series. I really, really enjoyed it. I read it on my trip to Europe. Also, I just need to say that the covers of this entire series are so gorgeous. They're like vintage looking. There is a name for this art style, and I am not going to even pretend to know what the name of that art style is. So if y'all know, please tell me. But look up the covers for this series. It's gorgeous. And also, Dusty has good tattoos in this cover, including some roses that look identical to my roses, including a rose on his elbow that is in almost the exact same place that I have a rose tattooed on my elbow. So does this mean that Dusty and I are meant to be? No, because he and Cam are so cute together that I can't even make that joke and pretend like it's real. So really liked this book. Another one that I really liked that I also read in May, this was after my reading slump ended, thank God, is Primetime Romance by Kate Robb. I gave this one also 4 stars on Storygraph, which seemed to be maybe an unpopular opinion because the overall reviews were 3.63. But Kate Robb is an author that I've really come to like. She wrote this book called This Spells Love that I really enjoyed. And she kind of reminds me of Ashley Poston in that she writes these sort of magical realism books that take place in the real world, but also have like a suspension of reality that I really enjoy. This one is really cute because the main character, Bryn, lives, she's obsessed with this sort of Dawson's Creek-esque TV show called Carson's Cove. And she and her roommate basically end up in Carson's Cove. Her roommate is a guy named Josh. They end up in Carson's Cove, essentially like living as 2 of the main characters in the show. It's really entertaining. And just really like bizarre, honestly. I enjoyed this. I don't know if I enjoyed it enough to want to reread it, but I enjoyed it enough to recommend it to all of you. I thought it was really sweet, really lighthearted, really funny. Some really lovable characters, great side characters that I very much enjoyed, and just all around a good, fun time. And a unique story, and Bryn, the main character, the female lead, if you will, is divorced. So this was also a divorce book, which has been a theme for me in my reading adventures this year. And that's not the last time you will hear me say that this episode. So definitely enjoyed that one. Another one also read on my Europe trip. Listen, I had many planes, trains, and automobiles, so I did a lot of reading on this trip. I was also alone on this trip, and so basically every time I went to eat at a restaurant or something, I would bring my Kindle and read, have my fictional friends to keep me company. So y'all know that I am a huge fan of Annabelle Monaghan. If you've been listening to this podcast, every one of her books has been a home run for me. Her latest, called It's a Love Story, was no different. I really, really enjoyed this. It wasn't my favorite of hers. I think my favorite of hers is still Nora Goes Off Script, which I believe was her first book. It was at least the first one that I read. But this one we've talked about briefly on the podcast before, just read the blurbs when we were talking about summer reads we were looking forward to. But this one is about a former child star who is trying to get a project greenlit in Hollywood, and she sort of teams up with someone she used to have a crush on, and of course they fall for each other. So it's again sort of a second chance. It's sort of an enemies to lovers. There's also sort of, I wouldn't call it a love triangle, but there is a movie star or a pop star, excuse me, that the female lead once kissed and who she sort of hates now because he blew her off. So when I was first reading this book, I began to wonder if maybe he would be the one who she fell in love with, but nope, not the case. That's not a spoiler because in the blurb it alludes to the fact that they fall for each other. So really a big fan of this. This one felt less summery than than some of the other ones. It's still summery, but the last two books that Annabelle Monaghan wrote, Summer Romance and Same Time Next Summer, are like very explicitly summer reads, whereas It's a Love Story, slightly less so, and Nora Goes Off Script, also slightly less so. But all of those are frankly 10 out of 10 for me. So having, I will read anything that Annabelle Monaghan puts out, which is pretty great. Next book I want to talk about, I was just DMing with our listener Amber about this book because she told me she just finished or she's reading One Golden Summer by Carly Fortune right now, and she just finished Every Summer After and Meet Me at the Lake, which are two Carly Fortune books that we did one episode about. We did a double feature about those two books. But Carly Fortune's new book, and if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you will know that Carly Fortune is sort of a divisive author in terms of mine and Abigail's tastes. I very much have loved every Carly Fortune book I have read. Abigail has felt less enthused about it, but One Golden Summer is, chef's kiss. I gave it 4.75 stars on Storygraph. I see that friend of the podcast, Tess, gave it 5 stars. So good to see that the homies love Carly Fortune the way I do. One Golden Summer I really loved because it is a direct follow-up to Every Summer After, which was Carly Fortune's first book in this sort of, I'm not going to call it a series, but they all exist in the same universe. So this is about a woman named Alice who reconnects with Charlie Florek, who is one of the brothers in Every Summer After. So this is not really a second chance because they never really met the first time around. But man, these books just feel like summer to me. I'm like, should I move to Canada? Is this the life that I want to live? I want to live on the lake. I am so jealous of these people. I want a little yellow speedboat. I want Charlie Florek, quite frankly. What a man. What a male lead in a romance novel. 10 out of 10. I loved One Golden Summer. Let's look at how this says 4.37 stars on Storygraph, which is pretty good. Great book. It just feels like summer, and honestly, I might reread it because there's this nostalgia in these books that feels like late summer to me, very specifically. And it is the last day of July, and I'm starting to get a little melancholy about summer coming to an end. And I'm teaching a summer class right now, so my summer's already sort of ended in that I have more demands on my time, but I'm trying to hold on to the last gasps of summer, you know? So yeah, this was a really lovely book. This was probably my favorite read of the summer. Another one that I enjoyed, maybe not as much as some of these others that I mentioned. I did give it 4 stars on Storygraph, but now that I'm remembering it, I think that might have been generous. Regardless, it's a cover story by Mary McFarlane, which came out this year. I've mentioned Mary McFarlane on the podcast before. We haven't done any episodes about her books, but she puts out so many that I'm sure we will eventually. This book is about a journalist who's a podcaster, and I swear to you that's not why I liked it, because y'all know that Abigail and I are picky about books about journalists. But this one was really interesting because she seems like she's actually an ethical journalist. The character in this book, her name's Belle, and there's an enemies to lovers coworkers to lovers sort of layer to this that I really enjoyed. And this one just feels like fun and juicy and salacious and gossipy. I don't know. It was just a good time. I would maybe not read this in the summer. This doesn't feel like a summer book to me. Might be more of a cozy fall situation, but again, similar to many of the other authors that I've mentioned today, I'll read anything she puts out, and I haven't met a single one that I've really hated. So this book is super funny. Also, Mary McFarlane is a really funny romance novelist. So if you haven't picked up anything by her before, I strongly recommend it. This book is on the longer side. It's like more than 400 pages if I'm remembering correctly. Most of her books are on the longer side. If you haven't read any of her books, the one that I think was my first one that I read by her, I could be misremembering, was Don't You Forget About Me, which was good. But my favorite of hers was Just Last Night, which is such a great book. It came out in 2021. It is gut-wrenching, quite frankly. So if you are the type of person that needs to look up trigger warnings before a book, that needs to look up content warnings, you absolutely should for this one. But just know that if you do that, you will get spoiled to a major plot point. But this was a really fantastic book. So yeah, big fan of Mary McFarlane. Moving on, I want to shout out also Scott and Bothered by Alexandra Kiley, which I think I've briefly mentioned on the pod before. I read her first book called Kilt Trip last summer, and I really liked it. It's based in Scotland. This book takes place in the same universe, in the same family, but you don't have to, there's way less of a barrier to entry because there aren't like the 5 million characters being mentioned all the time like in some other series books like this. So you can definitely just go into this one if you want to without reading the others. But this one is about a woman who is a ghostwriter, and her college professor wants her to co-write her memoir about this like hike that seems very similar to like the Pacific Coast Trail. Is that what it's called? Pacific Crest Trail? I don't have Abigail here to correct me on stuff. The one from Wild, y'all know what I'm talking about. It feels like that, but it's in Scotland. So basically, her and her like mortal enemy are sent to go do this hike, and they're camping and whatever. He's taking photos. She's helping write. So, and the guy, the photographer guy, is the professor's nephew. So that's how he gets roped into this. And so there's an enemies to lovers layer. There's a second chance. It's outdoorsy. It's Scottish. It's cozy as hell. I very much enjoyed this. Alexandra Kiley, to me, is an author to watch for sure. And bonus points, there is a Highland cow on the cover of this book. I need to get these books in print so that I can have them on my shelf because the covers are very cute. I actually might have Kilt Trip. I don't remember. If anyone has suggestions, this is an aside. If anyone has suggestions for how I should be cataloging and organizing my home library, I would very much appreciate it. I know Storygraph gives me the option to mark that I own books. That is not really working for me in the way that I need to. So if anybody has ideas for how I could organize my bookshelves, organize my life, keep track of which books I actually own, because it has happened to me before that I end up going to buy a book that I think I don't own, and surprise, I already own it. I'm also receiving a lot of like press book mail from publishers, and so like it's getting really unwieldy, y'all, and I need some help. So please DM us or DM me on Instagram. because your girl needs help. It's overflowing. I need new bookshelves. I'm running out of room. I only have a 1,700 square foot apartment. 1,700. Wow. I wish I had a 1,700 square foot apartment. I only have a 700 square foot apartment. So, SOS, send help. I believe, yes, the last romance novel I will be talking about is one that really, really surprised me. I think I mentioned it on our most recent podcast. It's Roll for Romance by Lenora Woods, who lives in Austin. Hey, girl, let's hang out. Loved this book. And it's actually set in Texas, like rural Texas, which longtime listeners will know. Abigail and I both grew up in small town Texas. And the area that this book is set in sounds very much like where I grew up. It is clearly set in Central Texas because they talk about going to Austin. So yeah, Lenora, seriously, let's hang out. But this book I really loved because I've been watching a lot of Dimension 20 on Dropout lately, because I watched, if y'all are Dropout fans, I'm caught up on Game Changer and Make Some Noise, and I was like, what else is there to do? So I started watching Dimension 20 from the beginning. I've never played D&D a single day in my life, but I've always been fascinated by it. I don't think I would be good at role-playing games because I get really self-conscious about stuff like that, like skits and like role-play stuff. I don't know why I get really flustered. So I don't think I would be good at it, which means I don't know if I would enjoy it because I only like doing things I'm good at. But I've always been fascinated by the idea of D&D, and it turns out I really like watching other people play D&D. And turns out I also like reading romance novels about it. So this book was really, really fun. So this book is about a woman named Sadie who loses her marketing job in New York City, moves to small town Texas to live with her best friend, spend the summer, who is he's a dungeon master, and he finally gets her to join a D&D campaign, which apparently he's been trying to get her to do for as long as they've been friends. So Sadie meets all of these friends in the D&D campaign, including a guy named Noah, and they start to fall for each other. It's very sweet without being too saccharine. And one thing that's really fun and unique about this book is that you get stretches of the book that are in character of their D&D characters. So you're getting to kind of follow along with the story of this D&D campaign, which is, a fantasy story. And then you're also getting their love story. And it's just really sweet. And it's such a unique premise for a book. I have never quite read a book like this one. I really enjoyed it. I haven't reviewed it on Storygraph yet, but I think I'm going to give it like 4.5 stars, maybe 4 stars, maybe 4.25. I really liked it. It came out recently, I want to say. It came out July 15th, and it has 4.04 stars on Storygraph, which is high. So if this book is something that sounds even remotely interesting to you, or if you're wanting something that's like really different than maybe what you're used to picking up, I really recommend this one. It's really, really delightful, and I've really enjoyed it. And again, Lenora, girl, if you're hearing this, let's get a drink. So now I'm going to bring us into the honorable mentions, which are all of my non-romance favorite books of the year, many of which I have talked about on this podcast so far this year already. So I'm not going to get too deep into this. Also, the one time we did an episode that wasn't about a romance novel, y'all did not like it. So not going to waste your time. But guess what? I have control of the microphone, so I'm going to talk about the books that I want to talk about. So, brief overview: The Wedding People by Allison Espach. I don't really know how to say her last name. It's Espach. If you haven't heard of this book, you have been living under a rock, quite frankly. I read it in January. It came out in July of last year. It was my first 5-star read of 2025. I hesitated for a second, like, what year is it? This was a book that I read after, well, it was after my divorce, yes, but I was still really like in the throes of having big, scary feelings about my divorce. And this book really did a lot of healing work for me in a strange way, which I really wasn't expecting. And it's also just a really lovely story. It's really warm, but it's also nostalgic, and you feel a sense of loss as well. It's just a fantastic book, one that I would recommend to anybody, actually. Another related to that, another book that I read this year that like quite frankly stopped me in my tracks, which I've talked about at length on the podcast, was No Fault by Haley Mlotek, I think is how you say her name, Mlotek. It is a memoir about divorce, and I don't even know how to describe how important this book was for me in my healing process. She talks about growing up with, a grandmother who had been divorced twice. Her mom was a marriage counselor. So it's really a meditation, not just on divorce, but like the state of marriage, and also like the institution of marriage, especially for women. It's so interesting. I would recommend it to any and every woman, whether you are single, divorced, happily married, in a relationship, whatever. I think it's really eye-opening in terms of how marriage works and the history of marriage, why it even exists in the first place, why we do it, why some people don't do it. Really enjoyed it. Another nonfiction that I really loved is John Green's book about tuberculosis, and how it is kind of connected to everything in our world. This is the precise brand of nerd that I am. It's a short book. It's less than 200 pages, but it is classically John Green, for those of you who know and are fans of him. It's very reflective, but it pulls no punches. There's a lot of historical context and scientific context, but there is also a lot of humanity in it, and John speaks to a lot of people who are and were and have been personally impacted by a 100% curable disease that is yet still the world's deadliest disease. And it is, in a time that I think a lot of people feel very, very divided and very distanced from the world, and feel helpless in a lot of ways. I think this is an important book to read. Another honorable mention that Abigail and I have talked about at length is The Compound, which we both read. It is like a post-apocalyptic Love Island. Shit's wild. It's like Love Island meets The Hunger Games meets Lord of the Flies. It's fucking bananas. I read this book in one sitting. I gave it 4.5 stars just because I might have given it 5, but I honestly just like got really annoyed at some of the characters at some points. But this book is awesome. Would recommend it. It came out in, I'm trying to see when it came out for y'all. It only came out in June, so it's a new book. And then my final honorable mention, that I wasn't sure if I should include in the romance section or in this section, so I just decided to mention it at the end, is Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I've mentioned on the podcast before that I am like very 50-50 on Taylor Jenkins Reid books, but I know that there are some real TJR heads out there. This book, I listened to the audiobook, which was narrated by love of mine and Abigail's lives, in terms of audiobook narrators, Julia Whalen. She's fantastic. And it is about it's historical fiction about a woman who was among the first groups of women who became astronauts. And it is also a queer love story. And she falls in love with another woman in her cohort in a time in 1980s Texas, when being in a lesbian relationship with your colleague was perhaps not something that you would want to broadcast to the world. This book was so emotionally charged and just like gutting. And if you're an audiobook girly, gender neutral, I would strongly recommend listening to the audiobook because, like I said, it packs a huge emotional punch. And I think for me, hit even harder in audiobook form than it would have had I read it. Some others that I haven't mentioned, but y'all already know are on the list of favorites. You've got your Finders Keepers. You've got your Say You'll Remember Me. You've got, honestly, this is a hot take, but I wouldn't put the new Emily Henry on my list of favorite books of the year so far. Sorry. Maybe by the end of the year, it'll make it on my best of list, but I don't really foresee that happening. It was just not my favorite, as y'all know if you listen to our episode about Great Big Beautiful Life. I think First Time Caller, which we also did an episode about, that was also very good, by B.K. Borison. And I've mentioned on the last few episodes, I'm rereading the Crowns of Nyaxia series. Those books remain excellent. The new one in that series comes out imminently in the coming days and weeks. I don't remember the exact date, but y'all know I got it pre-ordered, so I am sat and ready. But I would love to hear what some of y'all's favorite books of the year are, or if you've read any of these that I've mentioned and you liked or disliked them. Let me know what you thought. Let me know if there's anything you think I should read based on hearing me yap for a half hour about everything that I've liked. I feel like y'all probably know my taste by now if you've made it this far. But I am excited to get caught up. What am I currently reading? I am currently rereading Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, which, if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you will know is one of my all-time favorite books. I have been listening to the audiobook, which is a new experience for me. It's very good. It remains a perfect book. For those who have read the book, I am getting close to that part, and I am starting to regret the emotional distress that I will be in by rereading this book. But you know what? It's a great book. I wouldn't miss it. I'm also reading Water Moon by Samantha Sato Yambao. I'm so sorry. Yambao, Yambao. It came out this year. It was one of my book of the month books. I'm trying to get caught up on those. I'm pretty behind. I'm reading it. It's quite good. It's infinitely readable. It's a fantasy novel. I'm probably going to finish it right after I finish recording this. And then I'm also very slowly making my way through Black Cake by Charmaine Wilkerson, which I know was an incredibly popular book back in 2022, has since been made into, I'm not sure if it was a TV show or a movie, but it's been given the big screen or small screen, I guess, treatment. I think it was a series on Hulu. I'm listening to the audiobook, and I don't know, y'all, I'm not as into this one as I was really wanting to be. It's taking me a really long time to move through it. The only reason I had to pause on Black Cake and start listening to Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow is because I own Tomorrow on Libro.fm, whereas I was listening to Black Cake on Spotify, and I ran out of Spotify hours, but they refresh today for me. So I will get back on Black Cake. I'm only 58% of the way through. So I'm hoping it'll come around for me. But I don't know. Just because something is super hyped up doesn't mean I'm automatically going to love it. And I just am not really connecting with this book in the way that I wanted to, though I am really fascinated by the story. I think I have issues with just like multi-generational family sagas. I think I often get lost. But I know that a lot of people really loved this book, so don't come for me if I end up not liking it. But like I said, I've still got like 42% left, so we'll see how it goes. But I hope you didn't get too annoyed at just listening to one voice yap for a half hour. DM me or DM at 50% pod any book recommendations that you have for me or for us. I think we're doing one more summer read before we move on to fall books or less summery books, even though still 100 damn degrees in Texas. So yeah, let me know what we should be reading next, and otherwise I will talk to y'all next time.